So these are assembly instructions for my triple twist pop-up card. So I'm going to be demonstrating the birthday card version, but the assembly instructions would be very similar for the St. Patrick's Day version as well. So I'm going to start by assembling the image that's on the front of my card. I'm starting with a piece of foil poster board. So I'm layering up all the different parts of my image onto this piece. So I'm using vinyl, I'm using patterned cardstock, and I'm using different colored cardstock for this part. I have score lines on that purple piece that show me exactly where to position these two pieces, which are cut out of patterned cardstock. So these are the panels for the outside of my card. I'm starting with foil poster board, and then I've cut 2 panels from 65-pound cardstock. I would have preferred 80-pound for this, but this is what I had. And I've embossed those panels using an embossing folder and my embossing machine. And I'm just going to glue them down, trying to maintain an even border all the way around. So my card is landscape format. So I've cut out part of this cloud so that it looks like it's behind my hot air balloon, like so. So I'm just going to glue my elements down pretty much as you see here. Normally when I assemble a card, I start with the interior and then I decorate the exterior. For this card, I used 80-pound cardstock as my card base. I have my score line in the center. I've just folded down on it. Because it's only 80-pound cardstock, these extra layers are going to add a little bit of sturdiness to my card, which will help with the mechanisms. So that's why I'm decorating the outside of the card first for a change. So I'm just covering the underside of the panels that I've just assembled in glue, and I'm adhering them to the outside of my card base. So for the St. Patrick's Day version, however, I did use Cricut craft board for the card base, so that's extremely sturdy. So these added layers add sturdiness for my cardstock, whereas with my craft board version, I didn't have to add those extra layers. So now I'm just going to open my card and glue down the panels for the interior. Now this is patterned paper. It's digital paper that I purchased from the internet. I've printed it out on my printer and then used it to cut out these panels. I'm just going to adhere them to my card base, leaving an even border all the way around. So next I'm going to decorate the panel that pops out of my twist and pop card. I'm folding towards me on the first panel, away from me on the second, and towards me on the third. That's just a simple accordion fold. Then I have the panels that decorate it, and I've cut out the letters that spell celebrate, and I'm just going to glue them down, trying to keep them as evenly positioned and as centered on my panels as possible. So now that I've glued down my letters, I'm just going to glue down my 4 panels, trying to maintain an even border around all 4 of them. So now I have my print and cut images, and I have some more of that foil poster board, and I'm just going to adhere all 3 of them to their bases. So next I'm working on the largest mechanism for the card. So that's the traditional pop and twist mechanism. So those diagonal score lines get folded upwards like so, so in a mountain fold. And then the one horizontal score line, I'm folding that whole panel lengthwise in half towards me. So next, I'm holding my mechanism on the top and the bottom, and I'm inserting my index fingers down that score line, which causes my mechanism to fold down like this. So it's identical on both sides. So next I'm grabbing my card base. I know that my card is 7 inches wide, so I'm putting a tick mark at 3.5, which is the middle. And then I'm placing my mechanism. I have a triangle at the top of my mechanism. I'm going to imagine that the sides of my mechanism continue. There's a little cutout there to make it easier for my mechanism to fold down. But I don't want the top of my triangle right up against the score line. I want to give it a little bit of room, and I'm imagining that the sides of this triangle remained intact and where they would intersect. So the point of this triangle would be at that tick mark that I put in the center of my card. I also want to make sure that this triangle is as straight as possible. So you don't want it to one side or to another. You want it nice and straight. So next I'm putting glue all along that top triangle So if I was using a panel that had any kind of a finish on it here, I would use double-sided tape instead of glue. And then holding everything in position, I'm just folding down on my card. So now I'm going to open my card and I'm going to put glue on that triangle. It's on the other side. And then I'm closing my card again. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure, making sure that that glue takes. Then when you open your card, you have that pop up. So I'm putting glue in a square format. Now if you look at the other side, there's a score line. That score line that's on the other side, if you can see it through your cardstock, that's where you want to apply your glue. So from that score line to the edge, and it forms a square. You want to do that on both sides. And then you're going to take your folded piece. Let's pretend this is a booklet. We're going to fold it down and the pages are going to be open towards you. You want to make sure that the decorated part of your card is on the top. Slowly close your card, but before you get to the closed position, you want to position your little booklet as centrally as possible on your card base. The left part of the mechanism is over and the right part of the mechanism is under. My booklet is sandwiched in between. I'm positioning my booklet so that it's just above my decorative panel on my card base. I'm applying pressure to make sure that that glue takes. Now I'm working on the two smaller mechanisms. They're exactly the same, so they're assembled the exact same way. Take that rectangular piece with the score line in the center, and I'm just folding down on that center score line. And then I'm going to take the other piece. So I have my two diagonal lines, very similar to the larger mechanism, and I'm just folding on those. And then I have the center score line. I'm folding the top portion towards me. So now I'm holding my mechanism, I'm applying a little bit of pressure and pushing inwards with my index fingers, and that creates a mechanism that looks like this. And notice it's the same on both sides. I have a panel on the bottom that has a triangle and then a second triangle. I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge on that lower panel. I'm going to flip my piece around, and again, I've got those two triangles at the bottom. I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge on the second panel. And then I'm taking that rectangular panel. I'm positioning my piece so that my panel is just on the score line on one side. And then I'm flipping my piece over and closing my panel into that portion of my mechanism. My mechanism is glued here and here. So when I put my thumbs into those two triangles at the base, it causes my mechanism to open. And to make it a little bit easier, you can just fold. You can fold on that score line just below where the glue's been applied. When my mechanism is closed, it looks like this, and then when you open it, it pops up like so. So I'm just going to assemble the second one the exact same way. So now I'm going to glue on my two extra pop-ups. So this is what makes my pop-up a triple. These two pop-ups get glued down into the valleys of these four panels. I'm just rotating my card. I'm putting glue on that triangular piece that's at the bottom. I'm centering it as best I can on this panel. I want the tip of my triangle to be close to the score line, but not exactly on it. Then I'm putting glue on the triangle that's on the other side, and then I'm closing my card. I'm applying a little pressure and waiting for that glue to take. I'm rotating my card in the opposite direction, glue the other mechanism on the other side the exact same way. I went in and made these extra pop-ups a little bit smaller. You can see where I ripped the other one off. So when you folded down the card, if you inserted these images, they would pop out on the side of the card. So I made the images a little smaller. I made the pop-ups a little bit smaller as well. So a little fiddlier to assemble, but easier for placement. I'm just putting glue all over the surface of that square part of my mechanism. And then I'm attaching my circle, and then I'm just closing it just to test it. And no, you can't see it when you close the card, so it's well placed. I'm going to do that with my other image as well. I'm just putting glue all over the square part of that mechanism. I'm placing my circular piece towards me. So now when you pop up, so I have my sentiment panel for the bottom. I'm going to glue it down and center it as best I can. I'm putting glue on the underside of the third circular image and just placing it at the top of my card like so. In the end, my triple twist is quite a thick card, so it may be difficult for mailing. And it does pop open a tad because of the thickness and all those layers. So this is the St. Patrick's Day version. And for this version, I've used craft board for the card base, and I have embossed and used cardstock with a shiny finish. I had to use double-sided tape to adhere the mechanism to the card base.